Devon, I know that everyone is waiting with bated breath to hear what you have to say about the big announcement that we're going to get one more time, probably the last time in history, the Dudley Boys versus the Hardy Boys in TNA. What's your prediction for that match?
Prediction? Pain.
Devon and the Duke bring the heat. Wrestling tales knock you off your seat. Tune in now, don't you be late. Wrestling podcast never felt this great. Tables, ladders, chairs, they tell it all. From the highest highs to the lowest fall. Great and glory tales from the ring. Every chant, every cheer they'll bring. Devon and the Duke bring the heat. Wrestling tales knock you off your seat. Tune in now, don't you be late. Wrestling podcast never felt this great.
Brothers and sisters, it is with a heavy heart that I announce that on Thursday, the 24th of July, 2025, the immortal Hulk Hogan took his last breath. Condolences to family, friends, and fellow fans out there. This is absolutely one of the most traumatic and impactful losses that we've had probably in our lifetime as it relates to pro wrestling. So definitely my heart goes out to everyone out there. And really, here on Devon and the Duke, the honor of being able to do a show with a Hall of Famer who grew up as a wrestling fan, and somebody who was great friends with Hulk Hogan. It's tricky here to do this episode because I know that it's pretty emotional. So I want to give a disclaimer for everyone. This is not going to be a long one, but it is going to be heartfelt. So just bear with me here. So without further ado, my brother, the Hall of Famer himself, the 5-time Hall of Famer, Devon Dudley. How you holding up there, man?
I'm doing all right, hanging in there. It was complete, surreal, and just unbelievable. We all have to go. We all have to go to that other side. But when it happens to someone like this, it just seems to be surreal. Like you just can't believe it's happening. You're always caught off guard. And I think this caught everyone off guard because this is something that they weren't really ready for. You had Malcolm Jamal Warner, God rest his soul, in the drowning, that caught people, for a shock a little bit. And then Ozzy Osbourne, and now Hulk Hogan. They all say they go in threes. And I hate that saying. And I say that because everybody's panicking who's next. When there's like the first one or the second one, there's a third one. But if you really think about it, when people make that statement, it's not that they go in threes. It just happens to be somebody in the celebrity world that goes, if they go in three. But I mean, that's just the way it is. Hulk Hogan was a bigger than life superstar. I mean, he was bigger than the business. I'm sorry. Some people will say no one person was bigger than the business, but Hogan was. Hogan was the man that drew asses and seats. If it wasn't for Hogan, none of us would be here talking about pro wrestling. The collaboration between him and Vince McMahon in the 80s was just unreal. It came at the perfect time. And when that collaboration happened and Hogan came back and left the AWA, Hulkamania blew up. And you can't deny that. Not to mention, what he did in the AWA with Vern Gagne. That's where it all started. People think it started with Vince and Hogan and WWF. but it actually started in the AWA. He was selling out seats, ripping the t-shirt, that charisma. It was all in the AWA. But like I've said so many times, when you have a mind like Vince McMahon, especially back then, and I'm sure with the help of Pat Patterson, because he was back then too, when you put those minds together, Hulkamania went to another level. And that was just something that Vern in the AWA didn't have at that time. He didn't have that. I mean, he was very good and knowledgeable in what he did and where he brought the AWA, but to have those other people backing you and giving you ideas and stories for your character and everything like that, he didn't pretty much have that what Vince had. He had those people behind him that was able to elevate and push Hogan to that level. The first time I remember seeing Hogan was in Rocky 3. He did Rocky 3, and I remember seeing him going, man, he looks familiar. Because as a kid, even though in 1977, when I first started watching wrestling, you know, I didn't really know wrestling like I did as I got older into my teen years and stuff like that. So when I turned it on and I saw it, I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't know the people that I was looking at. So I'm sure I might have seen Hogan here and there. That's why he looked so familiar when I saw him in Rocky 3, especially when Hogan took on Andre in Shea Stadium. I remember at one point that I remember because it was such a big draw for them at that time, that they kept replaying it over and over again sometimes in little videos and stuff like that back then. And so that's probably how and why he looks so familiar in Rocky 3. And because everybody knows my story with Rocky 3, how I basically, my character is built off of Mr. T, for me, it's one of the greatest Rockies of all time. And it was the one that drew the most money as well. I I just remember seeing him and going, good God, this is incredible. As a kid, I remember watching it in the movie theater. And then every chance I got, I wanted to watch it on VHS tape or HBO, or another one that a lot of people may not remember. Well, I know this generation wouldn't remember, but there was another cable station called WHT. That was like HBO rivalry, and you either had one or the other. Unless you were rich, you had both. But I remember trying to watch it every chance I got when it was on HBO or, like I said, WHT. It was something that to me it was special. Sylvester Stallone casting Hulk Hogan at that time probably didn't realize what he was doing for professional wrestling. Hogan, again, to me was a bigger than life star. He just basically was everything that pro wrestling needed at that time. Nobody drew more money back in the 80s, even in the 90s, than Hulk Hogan. I'm sorry, I firmly believe that. Because think about it, he didn't have social media. He didn't have none of that to help him. He did it all on his back with everybody else that was in the company and Vince McMahon. He broke records that I don't think anybody could have done. And Ric Flair said it best. He was the biggest star. And if that comes from Ric Flair, then he was. That's Ric Flair putting Hogan over, even more than himself. Because everybody looks at Ric Flair as being the greatest of all time with all of his, his catchphrases that he did back in the NWA, all his promos and things like that, his matches with Dusty, and the list goes on and on. But even Flair, you know, paid tribute to Hogan. And it was just one of those things, man, where, again, I am at a loss for words. So I'm jumping all over the place with what I'm saying because, again, they say you don't want to meet your heroes. I met them and was not disappointed. There's going to be a lot of bad things that are said about Hogan, especially because of the words that he used when he was at his lowest. I didn't put anything up on social media because of the haters that will sit there and degrade him and put him down because of, his when he was at his darkest place and things like that. Listen, the Bible says it best. He he who's without sin cast the first stone. All those people out there that saying negative stuff now that Hogan is no longer with us, look at yourself in the mirror. What have you done in life that everybody could be proud of, or I should say, nobody would take offense to what you've done? Because you can't. We all are guilty in one way, shape, or form of saying something, doing something that wouldn't be appropriate or what have you. I'm not condoning in any possible way what happened or what was said at his lowest point. Because listen, I'm African American. I get it. Okay, if anybody gets it, us as African American people, we get it. But at the same token, you cannot deny what this man has done for this business. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, there would be no WWE, there would be no AEW, there would be no TNA. There would be none of this. We wouldn't even be having this platform right now that what we're doing. We're able to still be relevant in this business because of that man. The business right now is hot. It's hotter than it's been in a long time. And in my opinion, it never gets to that level if Hogan didn't do what he did back in the 80s. If Hogan didn't generate what he generated, we wouldn't be here. Our worlds would probably be totally different. There'd probably be no wrestling podcast. There would be nothing wrestling probably anymore. The way territories were dying out, and how they fizzled, not just because Vince McMahon went in there and, raided all of the talent, but think about it. Everything eventually folds in one way, shape, or form. Businesses, things that you never thought would go out of business and things like that. It happens. Who's to say that that wouldn't happen with the WWE and how close it became so many times? WrestleMania, the first one, was a hit or miss. If it would have missed, we definitely wouldn't have been here. WrestleMania 2, which I just found out from watching the Vince documentary, that a lot of people can say that WrestleMania 2 as being a flop in a sense because it didn't draw the numbers or the ratings that the first WrestleMania did. But then here comes WrestleMania 3. And who did that? Hogan. The buildup between Andre and Hogan is something, if it's done right, it can be done again, but I don't think it ever will be. No one ever thought in a million years that Hogan would beat Andre. They played that storyline to a T. 15 years being undefeated. Never once, Hogan, did you ever give this man a title shot. Never once did you offer him anything. The buildup between Andre and Hogan, and with Bobby Heenan being the mouthpiece for Andre. I mean, the three of them together, good God, you had to be there during that time to feel what I'm feeling right now. And again, I told you I'm all over the place, but let's go back to the early 80s when he first came in, the Rock and Wrestling connection. The whole collaboration with Cyndi Lauper and Dave Wolf, Rick Derringer, and all of that. You really had to be there to understand what these guys were doing back then. It was unreal. It was surreal. It brought wrestling out of the closet and made it mainstream. Captain Lou Albano, Rowdy Piper, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Muhammad Ali, Liberace, all of that, all of those guys at the first WrestleMania just was phenomenal. It'll never be forgotten. I'm sorry, but it will never be duplicated. It just won't. And as far as I'm concerned, it's one of those things where, you know, those that were there can reminisce and go back and remember where you were when certain things happened during that time. But this new generation will never, ever know what it was like to deal with Hulkamania when it first came out. Again, I refuse to go on social media to say anything about it because it's the negative hate that I've seen out there from some people, still living, in the past about what he said or what he did. Was Hulk Hogan a stand-up person all the time? Maybe not. Are we all? No. Again, there are things in our lives that we're not happy, probably that we've done, but we want forgiveness. Bubba said this best too as well. He said when someone commits murder and he's convicted for 25, 30 years in jail, when he gets out, he's given a new start. He's given a new lease on life. Hogan never got that. Some people say that what his remarks were when it got made public, that there was not enough remorse or what have you. Okay. Grant you, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. And I understand that. And I'm not denying how you should feel. But to denounce everything that he's done and sweep underneath the rug is asinine. There would be no Cody Rhodes. There would be no Rock. There would be nobody that is big right now in pro wrestling if it wasn't for Hogan.
Devon, you've nailed it on so many fronts, and you're speaking from the heart. So to say that you're all over the place, no, you're speaking directly from the heart, man, and it's solid. It's all solid. It's the thing is, we talked about Hulk Hogan and the racist things that he said, and we expressed our feelings about that. We talked about that earlier this year. So, folks, there's no confusion about our position on that. With that said, Devon, you touched upon a story. I think it was actually last year when you did it, when we first started doing this Devon and Duke show. You touched upon a story a little bit, but offline, you and I, you gave me a lot more detail and what have you. So I'm gonna ask you to put this out online, because this is not something that most people know. Most people have never heard this before. You credit Hulk Hogan for being a major help to you in TNA. And before you start to tell that story, I want to set the stage for people out there, especially younger folks out there who may not know the history. Devon Dudley and Bubba Ray Dudley, the Dudley boys, were already legends in ECW. They already accomplished everything they could accomplish there. They went to the WWE and became legends in the WWE. Right? TLC and all these different things that they did, working with The Rock, the whole 9 yards. They became WWE legends and basically cemented themselves as future Hall of Famers. So they had already done all of that. They signed to TNA, and they go on a tear in TNA as well. So now they become TNA legends. They go to Japan, become legends in Japan, the whole 9 yards here. As a tag team, they pretty much accomplished about as much as they could have at that point. So you guys were split up in TNA, and Hulk Hogan had some influence over your career at that point. So I'm gonna ask you, Devon, tell us the TNA story and what Hulk Hogan did for you, just so folks can really understand where you're coming from with all of your comments there.
Well, back then when me and Bubba split up, it seemed like TNA, the powers that be, thought that I was washed up. I was done. And they put me at the wayside and they started pushing Bubba like there was no tomorrow. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why. I gained some weight, not unhealthy, gained some weight, and I wasn't moving as whatever. But both of us were in that pretty much that category. They gave Bubba the opportunity to work and do what he was doing while he was in the process of losing the weight and developing his persona as Bully Ray. They gave him the opportunity to do that on camera while he was still relevant. Where with me, they kept me home. They didn't want to do anything with me. Each week I would come in, nah, Devon, we don't have nothing for you. Or if we did, it was just to go in there to put people over. And I felt like I was more than that. So I got myself together. I said, okay, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get my thoughts together. I'm going to get in the best shape I possibly could be in, and I'm going to prove them wrong. And that's exactly what I did. I remember I was sitting in catering. Hogan came in, and he goes, damn, Devon. He goes, how much weight have you lost? And I don't remember at the time. I was like 50, maybe 40 to 50 pounds. I don't know. He goes, man, you look amazing. I said, thanks, Hulk. He goes, yeah. He was like, yeah, keep it up. And then the next week, I think a couple of weeks later, he said, Devon, I've been watching you. He's like, good God, you're moving like the old Devon. I said, really? He goes, yeah, man. You look great in that ring. I said, thank you. I said, but they still not doing anything. Yeah, I don't understand that. And then they kept me home. They were still doing what they were doing. Then all of a sudden, I'm home and I remember I get a phone call. And I think it was either from Al Snow or Bruce Pritchard, and said, we need you here at the pay-per-view. I think it might have been No Surrender. I'm not sure. I said, okay, I'll be there. This is when we were filming at Universal Studios, so I was like maybe 40 minutes away from my house. I'm like, I'll be there. So I get there, and they said, yeah, Hogan really pushed for you to come back, him and Eric. And I was told by Dave Hepner, because Dave was in the meet. I'm not Dave. I'm sorry, Earl, because Earl was in the meetings in TNA. And he goes, man, Hogan loves you. I said, why do you say that? He goes, he kept pushing and pushing for you. And he kept saying, how come Devon's not there? Have you seen Devon? Have you seen what he looks like now? Have you seen what he's been doing in the ring? I don't understand it. You guys are making no sense by putting him on the back burner. This came from Earl Hebner and his son, Brian Hebner, because they were all in the meetings with them. And they both pulled me aside 2 separate occasions and told me what was being said about me. So they said, yeah, you have a match with Robbie E., who was the television title champ. And he says, yeah, they were debating back and forth on who should go over in this match. And Hogan said, what do you mean who should go over? Again, do I have to say it? Look at Devon. Look at what he's doing. Why wouldn't you put him over? Put him over. Let him have a title run. I don't get it, nor do I understand what you guys are doing. Hogan fought. Both of them said Hogan fought tooth and nail. And finally they said, okay, we put the title on Devon. And I just remember going in there and doing that, and then, just having a successful run with that television title. And it was all because of Hogan. Hogan was in my corner, left and right. When I was having contract disputes with them, they basically let me go, and I had the television title with me. They never took the title off of me. So I went home with the title. And I remember they needed it because they were I was gone. I had left. I wasn't coming back. I had no plans on coming back. And they said, we're going to have a tournament for the television title because it's vacant because Devon's not coming back. He left as champ. I took the title home with me. I get a call from Al Snow. Al says, Devon, how you doing? I said, I'm good, Al. What's up? Because Al at this time was office. So my guard was up with Al, which it shouldn't have been, but it was. And he says, hey, we're going to have a tournament for the title, and we need that title back. Can you give it to him? Can you bring it to us? I said, I'm in Mexico right now, man. I'm on vacation. He says, you're in Mexico. I said, yeah, I'm in Mexico right now. He was like, all right, can somebody come and get the title? I said, no, man. I said, I got 3 big ass Rottweilers. Anybody steps on my property, they'll get their ass bit. He was like, Devon, come on. I was like, Al, I'm serious. Nobody's at my home. And if they do show up there, I'm telling you, I'm not going to be responsible. I told you what would happen if they show up. And of course, Al knew I was full of shit, but I wasn't budging. I felt that TNA did me so wrong back then. Not this new regime TNA, but the, Dixie Carter's, version of TNA. And, I was just like, yeah, no, I can't do it. Sorry. I said, I'll give you the title after I come back from Mexico. And of course, the next week after the tournament, it was Samoa Joe versus Ken Anderson. And Joe knew what I was doing. Samoa Joe knew what I was doing. I called Joe after and I said, Joe, I said, I'm sorry, man. I said, but I can't give this title back. I said, they screwed me. They messed with me. They tried to cut my money. They really tried to destroy me in my career. I said, I can't do it. He goes, Devon, he goes, I knew you were full of shit. He said, I knew you were. He goes, when they told me what you were saying, he was like, oh, that motherfucker lying. But Joe understood, and Joe was like, Devon, I don't blame you. He said, if it was me, I would have threw the freaking title in the damn ocean and told him to go get it and tell him where I should put it. And, Joe was understanding about it and this and that. And he just laughed. We both laughed about it. But then Hogan went on his Twitter, which is X now, got to be correct, and said, I don't know why Devon's not here. I think it's BS that he's not back in TNA. They should have signed him. They should have did everything. I mean, he really went public. And I remember he tweeted me, tagged me in it. My Twitter followers went from 100,000 to 300,000 at that point. I was like, good God, the power of Hogan. And then the love and support that I got from the fans back then was just unreal because of Hogan and Bischoff. Don't want to leave Bischoff out. I don't care what Bischoff did in the end in WCW and this and that and the people that he did whatever people claim that he did wrong to and all that. I don't care. All I know is that when Bischoff was with me and we did business, he was a complete gentleman. He was behind me. Me and him have a great relationship now. But going to Hogan, he called me and told me, brother, I don't understand this. He goes, I'm at a loss for words with this company. He goes, it just doesn't make any sense, half the stuff that they're doing. I said, Hulk, I was like, it's all right. I was like, you know what? It is, man. I was like, I've been dealt this card pretty much my whole career, with the exception of ECW. I said, but other than that, it is what it is. And he just went, brother, listen, I'm getting you back in. He's like, don't worry. That was when the whole idea with the aces and eights came in and who was underneath the mask. And that was all Hogan's idea. And it just put another spark in my career when, we did that. And it was like Devon was reborn again. So there was 2 separate occasions where Hogan actually saved my career. So for people to say that, the comments that he made, I get it and understand why you're hurt by it. I was hurt by it. But like the Bible says, forgive. Because if you don't forgive your brother, I will not forgive you. And that's exactly what the Bible says. He apologized to me, pulled me aside, says, Devon, he goes, I'm not that type of person. I'm not. He was like, but they're killing me in social media. They're making me feel like that I am. I know I might have said things in the past or done things in the past. He goes, brother, I love you. And you know what? He didn't have to tell me that. He didn't have to pull me aside and say that, but he did. In his world, if you really think about it, I'm not taking anything away from myself, but I'm a nobody. And if you think compared to what this man has done, he didn't have to do that with me, but he did. He goes, Devon, I love you, brother. He goes, I love and respect everything that you've done, how you've gotten yourself out of this hole. And no matter how many times they try to knock you down, you keep getting up. He goes, I have so much respect for you.
And that was
And
then.
that
Let's
was
talk
then.
about the last conversation that you had with Hulk, because you spoke to him fairly recently, right?
Yeah, I spoke to him during WrestleMania weekend. I was doing the autograph signing, the con. I had butt dialed him about a week or 2 weeks prior to WrestleMania. And it was like I would always butt dial him by mistake. I don't know why, but I would always butt dial him, and he would always wait about a week or two to call me back. And I was signing, and it said Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan on my phone. I went, oh, I said Hulk. He goes, and he always answered, Devon, what's going on, brother? How you doing? Sorry, I'm just getting back to you, man. I was like, Terry, you ain't gotta apologize to me. I said, I made a mistake and butt dialed you. I was like, you don't have to apologize to me. He's like, he said, nah, brother, I want to speak to you. I want to see how you were doing. It's been some time. I said, yeah, I'm doing good. I told him about the back surgery, told him about all of that. I told him about Dallas, DDP, how he helped me. And he said to me, he goes, yeah, he was like, Dallas has been trying to get me to do that for years, but I just being me, I would just brush it off to the side. He's like, it really worked for you, huh? I said, Hulk, it really does work. I said, I know it doesn't seem like things that you're used to doing in the gym with the weights and stuff, but I'm telling you, this works. He was like, yeah, he's like, the amount of back surgeries that I've had and this and that. He was like, man, he was like, I need something right now. He's like, I'm going to give Dallas a call. Now, I don't know if he made that call. I'm not sure if he made a call at all, but, and then we continued to talk a little bit, and it was time to wind it down. And, he said, Devon, he goes, I just want to tell you that I respect the hell out of you. It was like, you're very genuine. You're this and you're that. He was like, I have a lot of respect for you. He said, and I just want to say, I love you, brother, for that. And I said, well, thank you, Terry. I said, thank you for everything that you've done for me. Thank you for everything that you've done for this business. I said, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. I said, I don't care what these idiots say about you. I don't care how they portray you as being. I know you. I know, and I say that because I remember what George Foreman said. I remember what Dennis Rodman said. Hell, I remember what Karl Malone said when all that stuff came out on him. They said, we still love Hogan. We respect him. We know people make mistakes. People say things they're not supposed to say. They do things they're not supposed to do, but he's asking for forgiveness. Whether you think it's genuine or not, or he's bullshitting around it, he's asking for forgiveness. You know? Um, and, I remember, them saying this stuff, those guys about Hogan. And I just remember going, I ain't holding no grudge against this man. I ain't holding no grudge at all. I understand why people are upset. I get it. But again, sometimes you just got to learn how to love and forgive. And that's exactly what I did. And right before we left the phone, he says, Devon, I just want to say I love you, brother. I love you very much. And I said, I love you too, Hulk. I said, we'll talk to each other soon. He's like, you got it, brother. Take care. I said, bye, Hulk. That was the last time I spoke to him.
A lot of people have been reaching out, and they don't know which way to go because they're still hurt by what Hulk said. Hell, I'm hurt by it. And again, you and I covered this on the show. There's no confusion about that. And I'm also hurt by the fact that one of my heroes, one of the biggest pieces of my childhood outside of my immediate family, is gone. I'm hurt because his friends like you, Devon, have lost somebody who, warts and all, he had your back. I'm hurt over the fact that his children lost their father. I'm hurt over the fact that the industry that depended on this man so much, and like you said, Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan set the table for everybody. There's not a single person in pro wrestling today that can say that they made a dime in pro wrestling on their own. What Hulk Hogan did in revitalizing the business and making it larger than life and putting it in a position where it can be mainstream forever. You know, everybody in the business today owes Hulk Hogan a debt of gratitude. That doesn't mean that we forget about the warts. Doesn't mean we forget about the negative things he said. Doesn't mean we forget about that stuff. But you can't deny the fact, just like you said, this man had an impact on all of us. And it's okay. It's okay to mourn that. Folks, it's okay. And I don't give a damn with all the other folks who just want to stay stuck. Well, he did something wrong and we just have to hate him forever. You can be that way if you want, and good for you. But just like Devon said, at some point you gotta let that hate out of your heart. At some point you have to be able to be a human being and recognize that people are imperfect. People are going to disappoint you. People are going to also bring you a tremendous amount of joy. Pro wrestling saved all of our lives. And when we talk about pro wrestling, we're talking about Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon, Ric Flair. We're talking about them. That's what we're talking about. So I just say this to everyone, piggybacking on what Devon said. Sure, never forget that this person did some negative stuff, some hurtful stuff. Never forget that. That's okay. But damn it, don't pretend like you weren't saying your prayers and eating your vitamins and looking up to the man upstairs. Who the hell is the man upstairs? I didn't even know who the man upstairs was. At 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, I didn't even know what the hell that meant. I just knew that Hulk Hogan said we got to pray to the man upstairs. Okay, so I'm praying to the man upstairs. Andre Giant ripped the crucifix off of Hulk Hogan's neck. Everyone's upset about that. Hulkamania is being attacked. Okay, I'm being attacked because I'm a Hulkamaniac. It's okay to go back to those moments in your life where you experienced those tremendous levels of joy and concern and triumph when the hero was able to defeat all the evil people. It's okay. You got to be able to separate things if you're going to be a complete human being and an adult. Not making any excuses for what the man has done wrong. But damn it, that was our hero at some point. The man is dead. It's okay to mourn that.
You know what kills me and hurts me, Duke? And I'm not going to name any names. And if you're listening to this, you know who you are. You sat there and you buried this man for the comments that he's made. Yes, I get it. But I know these same people have done things that if it was brought to light, that these fans would not be happy with, or the people, I should say, would not be happy with. And you would probably be put in the same boat as Hogan. But yet, and you buried the man when he was here. I get it, you were upset, but now that he's in death, it's kind of like you're being hypocrites. I'm not talking about just people in the industry, but I'm just talking about people in general. You're being hypocrites about it. Don't say good things about him now that he's gone. Try to correct how you felt and how you couldn't let it go. One of the biggest things the counselor will tell you is that in order for you to heal, you have to let go. You have to let go, because if not, the hate in your heart will consume you too. Trust me, I know. I've been married 3 times, so I know what that hate could feel like.
Don't get
But
in trouble
the minute you let it go, oh, I don't care. The minute you let that hate go, it's a new feeling. It's a new world. You see things a lot clearer. You know, here it is. I'm in ECW. This is when they had portable DVD players. I would have the Hulkamania DVD. I would watch it before I went out because the energy that man drew when he came out through that curtain was just unreal. It was energy that I basically never seen before, the likes of Hulk Hogan. When he would come out and how pumped up that crowd would be, it would get me pumped up. It would bring me back to when I was a kid watching it. And I would go out in the ECW arena, I feel like I was a god. I feel like I was untouchable, not a god. Excuse that. Not taking anything away from the creator, but I felt like I was invincible because I would be so charged. People would be like, "Oh, you're such a mark." You're damn right I am. And I'm damn proud of it because it made me go out there and do things that I never thought I could do because I was so pumped up watching that man before I went out there. We were on charter. We were on the charter flight one time, and I'm sitting there watching the Hulk Hogan's greatest hits. And you tried, flying 8 to 12 hours on a flight, landing, checking into the hotel, only to come back downstairs to get back on the bus after a 2 hour ride from the airport to the hotel to do that. Now you got to drive an hour to the arena and then put on a show. I would take that portable DV player. I'd put the Hogan's matches in, the promos, everything. I would watch it. I got off that bus, man. I was ready. Didn't need a 5 hour energy. Didn't have that at the time. Didn't need a Red Bull. Didn't have that at the time. Didn't need nothing but that DVD. The first time I ever met Hogan was at the Staples Center. It was when they came back from when WCW was brought out. They were bringing people in little by little to see how we would all generate together when Vince bought the company. Me and the Bubba leaving the hotel, we're driving to the Staples Center to get to the building to do Monday Night Raw. And Bubba knew how much of a big fan I was of Hogan and how much I loved that man. I had 370 something posters in my room of Hogan. That's how obsessed I was. And I just knew me living in Brooklyn in the projects, crack hitting the scene so bad. I rushed home not to be in the streets, but to see what he was going to do. I rushed home to the TV. I told him, I said, when I first met him, I said, "You saved my life." I didn't get mixed up and all that crap out there in the street because I was so in tune and so intact on what you guys were doing. My father, who's the Reverend, who I call my dad, didn't come into the picture until I was about 14, 15, when my mother met him and got remarried. So I had really no real father figure growing up. I said, "But you were the leader where I looked up to you. Everything you said, I wanted to do." I was mesmerized. I remember getting to the Staples Center. Papa goes, "Your boy's gonna be here, right?" And I said, "Who?" He said, "Hogan. NWO was coming in today." I said, "Oh, okay." I was being all tough and okay, yeah, not a big deal. I remember getting into the building. I went to the locker room. I dropped my bag off. I went back to walk because I was going to go to the ring. And as I'm going to the ring, there he is. He's standing there with Scott and Kevin talking to Vince. And I remember my body heated up. And I went back into the locker room. I ran back into the locker room because I was nervous to meet him. because I had never met him at that point. I had met Kevin, I had met Scott, but I had never met Hogan. And that's how strong it was for me. I said, Devon, get yourself together. You gotta get yourself together. Come on. Come on now. Come on. You're Devon Dudley. Stop. And I remember going back out there and I got myself together and I was like, hey, Hulk. I was like, how you doing, Mr. Hogan? And I said, Mr. Hogan, that's the respect. I said, how you doing? I said, how you doing? I'm Devon. He goes, Devon, get the tables. I said, what? He said, man, me and my son Nick, we love you, man. We watch you guys, and that's all we do around the house is go, Devon, get the tables. Man, my heart was filled with joy. A man that I idolized, that I felt saved my life, was telling me that. Mm. It was something, you know. People are embarrassed to tell stories like that because of where they are in the industry right now. I don't care. Make fun of me, make memes about it. I don't care. I know what this business has done for me, and I know what Hogan's done for me. And I remember telling him, I said, brother, I will never turn my back on you. I've done things in this life, even up to this day, I'm not proud of. I've made wrong decisions. I've said things that have probably been inappropriate that I would get ridiculed for and maybe even put in the same category as Hogan. But that's why I would never throw stones at somebody when I know I've probably done just as worse. So all you guys that might listen to this, that want to have something negative to say, go ahead and say it. I don't care. It's not going to hurt me one bit. I know the relationship I had with him, and that's a memory that I'll never forget. It's like you don't know my struggle. You don't know anybody's struggle but your own. The hatred that I've seen a lot of love. That's one reason why I don't go on Twitter. Because I feel like Twitter is kind of like, it can be the death of somebody or what have you, but I have Twitter for just promotional reasons for what I'm doing in my career now. But other than that, I don't really like to go on Twitter. The people are nasty, they're vulgar, they have no respect, and they feel like they can just say and do whatever they want. So I barely post anything on Twitter. My thing is Instagram or my personal Facebook. But the negativity that I've seen on Twitter and some of the things that were said was totally disgusting. That's somebody's father. That's somebody's husband. That's somebody's brother. How do you think they feel in the loss of their loved one to actually go on social media and see this stuff? Oh, but let me guess, you don't care, right? You don't care. He came to you personally and disrupted your life. So you don't care. You're full of shit. If you're going to sit here and denounce everything that man has done, the reason why you're even still watching pro wrestling is because of him. You're a fool. You can act all big and bad and hope that somebody sees your tweet or what have you and go, yeah, you damn right. Yeah, forget him. Yeah. Somebody even said, good that he's gone. What type of human being are you? It just kills me, man.
It's sad. It's sad. You know, Devon, I'm gonna put a button on this because we're going places with this one, boy. Again, such a major part of our childhood. Uh, and you being inspired by this man and then building a Hall of Fame career and being able to meet him, get to know him, build a friendship with him, make money with him. My God. My God. I know this isn't going to be easy, but you are the bishop's son and the bishop's son, the bishop and the bishop. You are their son. You are the reverend, your own damn self. So I'm gonna challenge you on this one. We always do our word of the week. This might be one of the most important words of the week that you'll ever do here. So to dedicate this to Hulkamania, what is your word of the week to take us out, brother?
I'm going to combine a couple of things. You know, as you're talking, I'm just saying, what am I going to possibly say to end this? But I'm going to combine a couple of things. It's not going to just be one thing. Number one, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. John 3:16. You know, he gave his only begotten son so we could be free. Let go and let God. He may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. John 3:16 was something that Hogan wore in countless interviews because he had given his life back to Christ. And, you know, there was a preacher on Twitter that Bubba had read, and he said it on the show today about how he said Hogan gave his life back to Christ. He got saved. So he knew that he was going to heaven. He got baptized and everything. And I believe that brother will be there. When that trumpet sounds and we're all raising, he'll be there, along with so many others. I know it's not something normally I would say. I would give you one thing and that was it, and we would go off, but I had to combine all of that into one. It's a sad moment for a lot of us. And it's time to heal. And that's what we're going to have to do. And for those haters out there that want to down me or make fun of me or what I'm saying, go ahead. That's okay. Can't hurt me. And you definitely can't hurt that man anymore. So good luck with you in your life.
You ready for this
And
one?
I hope. Yep.
Testify, brother.
Testify indeed, my brother. Testify.
Strictly for the culture every day. Step in style in your unique way. Patterns and colors so defined. All about the perfect line. Be yourself, let your spirit fly. In this fashion, you'll touch the sky. Strictly for the culture, brand so fine. Dress to impress and show your shine. Strictly for the culture, every day. Step in style in your unique way.
Visit www.heartfelt.com www.strictlyfortheculture.ca.
Backstage whispers and the crowds roar, from matching giants to legends of yore. Devon's wisdom and Duke's keen view, every episode feels like it's brand new. Devon and the Duke bring the heat, wrestling tales knock you off your seat. Tune in now, don't you be late. Wrestling podcast never